Good morning, everyone. The Academic Research and Student Affairs Committee is now called to order. And with that, will you please take roll?
Chair Del Carlo,
Here.
Vice Chair Perkins,
Here.
Regent Brown,
Here.
Regent Cruz Crawford,
Here.
Regent McMichael.
Here.
You do have a quorum.
Okay, thank you very much. And with that, we'll go to public comment. Is there public comment in Elko?
There is none at this time.
Thank you. Public comment in Las Vegas System Office?
There is no public comment in Las Vegas.
Thank you. Reno System Office? Anybody in Reno? Nobody? How about online? I mean, on the phone?
No callers at this time, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And how about here in Carson City? Okay. With that, we'll go to item number 2. We have consent items. Looking for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Thank
Regent
you,
Perkins.
Regent Perkins. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Regent McMichael. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of item number 2, the consent items, please say aye. Anybody?
Aye.
Okay, anybody opposed? Sounds like it was unanimous. Thank you very much. And with that, we go to item number 3. UNLV Program Change Interdisciplinary Studies. This is an action item, and I'll turn the floor over to Provost Heavey. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chair Del Carlo and Vice Chair Perkins, Regents, and Chancellor staff. Delighted to be here with you this morning. The first of our items is to ask for a program change to change the name of a variety of programs and consolidate them under the title of interdisciplinary studies. All of these programs are interdisciplinary in their nature and have a core of interdisciplinary courses that students complete as they pursue a specific area of concentration. And so the request of the faculty of this department is to consolidate these as all under one degree. The transcripts would list the degrees as in interdisciplinary studies, and the transcripts would list the degrees interdisciplinary studies with the concentration, and the diploma would simply say interdisciplinary studies. And as previously these degrees were considered interdisciplinary studies, but it got changed a few years back, and now they'd like to sort of return to the state of having them all as one degree program offered by this Department of Interdisciplinary Gender and Ethnic Studies.
Thank you so much. And with that, we'll go to Regent Perkins for a question.
Thank you. That was I was expecting more. That was so brief. I love it. How many students does this actually affect?
There's about 300 majors in this department right now. I think that 299.
And so they'll be able to easily transition to the new.
There's a teach out plan, and so the students will have the option of pursuing the degree that's currently they're studying under up through 2028, or changing to the new interdisciplinary studies overall degree. It'll be up to them.
Okay, thank you.
Does anyone else have a question, comment? Regent Brown, please.
Thank you so much, Regent Brown, for the record. This is a more broad statement that I do think that the Board of Regents needs a workforce gap analysis done so we can actually make better strategic decisions when you guys bring changes like this to our attention. We believe, but I also think it would be helpful for the institutions to have this information as well. I brought it up on the workforce committee, and I'm going to bring it up here, and I'm going to bring it up in the main board meeting when I get a chance, because I do think that if we are not data driven, then we are just making guesses to the best of our ability and whatever information is presented. And so where I think we have across the board, we have gaps that we need to fill in the matriculation and a bunch of other stuff, and I think that this does address that. I just would like, for the record, for in perpetuity to have better information, and so I would hope that this board can move to have a workforce gap analysis pushed for. Thank you.
Thanks. And if I could just comment briefly, I think that's a great idea. And you'll see in the next 2 degree proposals we talk more about the workforce elements. This is sort of a no-cost issue that won't lead to any changes in staffing or consume any additional resources. And I'll also comment that the Multidisciplinary Studies program, which is part of this department, is a very unique program that many students use to really good effect in the workforce, where they can combine several different disciplines into one degree to prepare them for unique roles. And I've known a lot of students who've gone through that program to tailor their skills to particular workforce areas. But your point is absolutely well taken. Agree 100%.
And I hope to hear that in new business. Okay? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to
Move to approve.
approve the Bachelor of Arts Interdisciplinary Studies.
Second.
Okay, I got it. Thank you. Normally you state the motion, but that's okay. Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All vote in favor? Anybody
Aye.
against? Okay, anybody against? All right, carries unanimously. And we'll go to item number 4, again, for possible action, UNLV program proposal, Bachelor of Science in Cybersecurity, and Provost Heavey.
Thank you very much, Chair Del Carlo and Vice Chair Chris Heavey, Executive Vice President and Provost of UNLV. For the record, we're absolutely delighted to be here today asking for approval of this new degree in cybersecurity. This is the result of several years of effort from both our College of Business and our College of Engineering, working collaboratively to create this new interdisciplinary degree. I think it sort of goes without saying that this degree targets one of the areas where there is the greatest workforce shortage in the nation of trained cybersecurity professionals. And so we believe this degree will immediately attract many students who will develop the skills to pursue high value, high compensation jobs. It also fits well within the system. We have a cybersecurity degree at CSN at the associate's level that this is well articulated with. And we have 2 master's degrees in the system, one at UNLV and one at UNR. And this bachelor's degree would prepare students to pursue those master's degrees as well if they want to continue on in their training. We have the resources in place to do this. And we really have already been doing outstanding work in this area, both training undergraduate students who are either MIS majors now or computer science majors most commonly, as well as we started the interdisciplinary master's degree in cybersecurity about 2 years ago. And so this will kind of really complement all of the efforts that are ongoing on the campus.
Thank you. We have any questions from any members of the committee? Regent Brown, please.
Regent Brown for the record. I actually don't have a question. I just wanted to say I think this is overdue. And I'm so excited that we get to vote on this. I think the infrastructure that like the federal government has been investing in really showcases that this is definitely jobs of the future. And I'm just so happy that we're making plans for what we will need, not just today, but 10, 15 years down the road. So this is just a great example of that. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the comment. And I guess I'll add that the campus has already secured the designation as a National Center of Excellence in cybersecurity training through the efforts that have been ongoing for many years, as I mentioned, both in computer science and in management information systems on campus.
Anybody else? I too am very pleased to see this program. I echo my colleagues' statement. And you did mention, I knew that CSN had a program. And is that going, I know you've probably worked with them. This is one of my big, we all have our personal things on this board. And mine's certainly a matriculation. And all those credits that they take at CSN will completely transfer seamlessly 100% up to you guys, right?
Yeah, it's fully articulated with the associate's degree in computer science and very well matched up with the associates of applied science in cybersecurity.
Great. Glad to hear that. So I will entertain a motion for approval
So moved.
from Regent Perkins and a second from Regent Brown. All those in favor of motion to approve, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody?
Aye.
Okay, that's all 5 of you said aye, so we'll move on. Thank you. to item number 5, also an action item, UNLV, program proposal for a Bachelor of Arts in Engineering Technology. And thank you for staying up there, Provost Evie.
Thank you, Chair Del Carlo and Vice Chair Perkins. Chris Evie, Executive Vice President and Provost, for the record. And this proposal for us is also a new degree in engineering, which is basically a degree that's designed to give students the skills in engineering without requiring them to complete the calculus series. And so engineering enrolls hundreds of students every year. Many of those students are able to successfully go on and earn their degrees in engineering or computer science. A meaningful number of those students do struggle with the math series that's required for professional engineering degrees. And so this Bachelor of Arts in Engineering Technology would allow students to gain the valuable skills that are offered in engineering without requiring them to complete the calculus series. And so we think there'll be many students who are passionate about what they can learn and do in engineering who will want to take advantage of this option when they would prefer or struggle to complete that calculus series.
Okay, any committee members have a question or comment? Regent Perkins?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Is there a compatible program at the community college level that can feed into this program?
Yeah, I think the Associates of Science degree will feed into this well, because that would be students having to complete that level of math. So I'd have to look at the articulation agreements, but I know that they have completed some of the articulation agreements for the planning here. That's a good question. Yeah, they have CSN articulation with AS and engineering technology. Yeah, perfect.
Thank you. It's really self motivation. That was my degree in AA in electronic engineering technology, but I did take the calculus. So
Okay, well done. And it looks like they've also articulated it with engineering technology construction track. Yeah, so a couple tracks in engineering technology and have the articulation agreements right here.
thank you for that.
Regent Brown, you have a question?
Regent Brown, for the record. I wanted to take a minute and just highlight Dean Rama. He is just such an impressive human, and I know all the hard work and that he's put into the engineering college at UNLV. I think the computer science program has grown like 900% since he got there. And so just to see these two different degrees, he's just such an innovative, forward-thinking human. And so I wanted to just take a minute to really highlight these additions because his leadership is really appreciated.
Thank you. I know that Dean Rama is in the NSHE South office and can step up to the microphone for a moment and at least say hello. And I want to agree 100% that he is an outstanding dean who has led the college for just a very long time now. And I did at Rebel Ready Week, I introduced him as the one more long-standing senior administrator at UNLV than me because he's been there for 34 years at the university. Dean Rama.
This is Rama Venkat, Dean of College of Engineering, for the record. Regent Brown and Board of Regents, all of you, we really appreciate what you have done to help the college and grow the program. I am proud to say college is enrolling something like 3,600 undergraduates this year. We are graduating about 450 students with BS and BA. Most of them find jobs, about 2/3 of them find jobs in Las Vegas or Reno area. Really, really happy and proud to be part of this team, and we appreciate all the help you have given us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Chair Carvalho has a question or comment.
Thank you, Chair Del Carlo. I was very interested in seeing this on the agenda, and thank you, Dean Rama, for being here today. I was wondering, since the engineering degrees are so heavily based in math, and I hear that Provost TV mentioned construction trades might be a kind of a feeder or entry into maybe some of this. What do you see as the focus of this degree in terms of students who might be interested in this? from the start. I could see others who say that they want to be an engineering major, but then struggle through the math. But I would imagine that there are others who just right from the start would be interested in this. So I'd like to hear what your thoughts are on that.
All right. So maybe I should mention a little bit about the retention numbers that'll give you an idea. This year we got about 730 freshmen into the college. This is a record number we have never seen before. And of these students, I would say about 300 of them are not pre-calculus ready, not even calculus. We need calculus to be an engineer or a computer scientist. That's a starting point. So I'm talking about pre-calculus 1 year before. So these students, many of them will struggle through math, but they have indicated they are very hands-on. They're very interested in computer science or engineering type of degrees. So what we are seeing is that these 300 students that I'm looking at, maybe 100 of them will get to calculus and get through and get a degree in 4 years. But about another 200 of them will probably pass maybe calculus 1, fail calculus 2, maybe pass calculus 2, fail calculus 3. So these students are interested in engineering and computer science. We don't want to lose them. We don't want them to drop out or go to some other college. If we can give them a track in construction, for example, the construction, you don't need a full degree in construction at all. What you really need is certain set of courses in like estimation. If they know that, or survey, they would be able to get a very good job, maybe $70,000, $80,000 job. Or in IT, you don't need a full MIS degree or a computer science degree, but if you're exposed to a little bit of cybersecurity, maybe a little bit of networks, you'll be able to be gainfully employed. And the other one we are thinking about is mechatronics. Again, you don't need a full mechanical engineering degree. If you're able to work with, do hands-on work with robots and automotive stuff, you may be able to get a very good job. So we think that this program is going to cater to not only fresh students coming in and saying, hey, I don't want to go through the calculus route. I want to do this degree program in IT or construction. That'll work out for them. Or anybody who drops out in the freshman year. I think this year we will be losing about 15% of our students in the freshman year. And in the sophomore year, we lose another 15-20% of the students. These students, since they have shown interest in engineering and computer science, we can capture them and pipe them into this degree program. So our goal is to retain anybody who comes to College of Engineering at UNLV. We want to retain them and give them a job where, get them a degree where they can get a good job.
Thank you for that. I was wondering if there are any degrees that are similar to this at other institutions.
Yeah, so I think CSN has engineering technology type of degrees in electrical, electronics technology and construction technology. They also have associate's degrees. So there are, we have looked at other universities like NSHE has a degree program. I think many colleges offer this. Purdue University, my alma mater, has this type of degree program. So this is very, very obvious to have. We have never had it. We just brought it in.
Thank you.
And thank you for being present today, Dean. And I'm very impressed with your school also, and your new building's just beautiful. And I would ask Provost Thompson if he's in the room, does UNLV or UNR have this degree too, or maybe with the success, if you don't, maybe with the success of this down in Las Vegas, if you'd consider that? I don't know, because you know you're both R1 and serving very similar students, different parts of the state. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Del Carlo. Jeff Thompson, Executive Vice President and Provost at the University of Nevada, Reno. For the record, we do not have this degree program. There are discussions going on to address the issues that the Dean has brought up, but we are not this far along.
Okay, so that's where we help each other as a system. And with the success of their program in UNLV, I hope you'll consider that in the future. I'm glad you're discussing it. So with that, if there's no other questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion to approve this proposal.
Regent Perkins, so moved.
Second.
Okay, got a first or a motion from Regent Perkins and a second from Regent McMichael. So all in favor, please say aye.
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 It passes unanimously.
Thank you.
We're moving right along. We're going to make up some time, maybe. Let's see, we'll go on to item number 6, also for possible action, and let's see, that's UNR. So this is the organizational unit proposal for the Center for Constitutional Law. I know you should have stayed up there, and we'll turn that over to you, Provost Thompson.
Good morning, Chair Del Carlo and Vice Chair Perkins and members of the committee. For the record, Jeff Thompson, Executive Vice President and Provost at the University of Nevada, Reno. So the university is requesting approval for the development and creation of a new Center for Constitutional Law. The University and the College of Arts seek to further strengthen the study of the Constitution and promote research into constitutional law, the law more broadly, and foundational social and political thought through its departments, schools, and centers. This has been a faculty-led initiative from multiple departments within the College of Liberal Arts, including political science, criminal justice, philosophy, history, core humanities, and justice management. And through research and scholarship of these faculty members in constitutional law, they have sought to create and have built a mission statement and vision statement for this center. The idea is that the center will serve the entire state of Nevada through research, instruction, and community outreach. And one of the success metrics is building programs for high school and middle school teachers to help them understand and develop curricula in constitutional law. Long-term financial stability and growth of the center will be sought through donors and grant funding, with an expectation that at least 70% of the center budget would be funded externally. And at this time, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions on the committee? Regent Brown.
Thank you, Regent Brown, for the record. I'm actually curious about why this is being presented as a center and not as a minor or a major in pre-law. Because to me, a center includes a lot more staff and facilities. And so I'm just curious if we could unpack this a little.
Sure. Thank you for the question. So an academic center or research center or educational center for us is a way of identity for interdisciplinary programs across departments. So having a faculty member who is in history, whose specialization in constitutional law, to be able to work with one in political science and then have an identity that says that this is the area we work in when they're doing interdisciplinary work or proposals or those types of things, brings an identity to the program. It also attracts graduate students into our programs who are looking to do research in these areas, and also visibility. So, for example, on a business card, it would say a faculty member Center for Constitutional Law History Department, and would go down that way. And it's a way to have identity for the type of work they do, but also to signal to other institutions that it's an interdisciplinary program. It's not just in a history department. So that is what a center means to us, and that's how we would use the word.
So we're not going to push for additional staff or facilities? This is just in title only?
Additional staff and faculty members would come with success. I mean, if the program is successful and there are more students, and it's a way to attract other faculty to come to be part of this center, yes, there could be, but not setting it up. I could see in longer term, if it's successful, yes, there'd be more people involved.
Because one thing that I like about this is that there's a potential to have a pipeline for the law school. This is the conversation I was having with people on your campus. But I think I just got stuck on the maybe verbiage of a center, because it feels more formalized in creating something separate, where a minor or a major would be a true pipeline. I almost feel like these are two different things, because you talk about research, you talk about talks, training high school teachers. I don't know how being a pipeline into our law school and all these other things can, unless it is something totally separate. And I think for me, I just don't know if something totally separate makes sense in a small state like ours.
So as an example, we have a lot of centers. I mean, we have centers, a global water center. which is focusing with faculty across many different disciplines on water issues. They focus in Nevada, but other parts of the world. And it's a way to bring in research funding, but also attract faculty who are interested in hydrology, who might be in natural resources, to work with faculty in biology who do limnology. And so that's the issue that we're trying to address. For pre-law, yes, the deans have had a discussion about how this might help students be prepared for law school, but that wasn't the original focus of having a center. It was really the faculty being engaged in scholarship, but also educational programs, which could end up being pre-law, but they could be at the graduate level too, with history PhD focused on constitutional issues. So it could be inclusive, but it's not only about a degree program. And actually, there's not a degree prefix that goes with this that we're proposing.
Okay, I think for me, when I had conversations about this, I think I was just explained differently. And so I think that's where I'm hung up on, but thank you.
Thank you.
I do have a question. Does this tie in at all to the National Judicial Law Center that's on campus? Will there be any synergy there?
There's already synergy there, and there are things that we do together as they're an affiliate for us.
Okay.
And so there are opportunities, but it's not going to be the focal point of the program going forward.
Okay. Anybody else have a question? Okay, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Motion to approve?
Thank you, Regent
Second.
Cruz Crawford. Second? Okay, Regent Perkins? Okay. All in favor of this proposal, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Anybody? No?
No.
Okay. Motion carries 4-1. And with that, we'll go on to item number 7. Again, for possible action, UNR program proposal, PhD, Human Development and Family Science. To you, Provost Thompson.
Thank you, Chair Del Carlo. For the record, Jeff Thompson, Executive Vice President and Provost, University of Nevada, Reno. So we're requesting approval of a new PhD program in Human Development and Family Science. The Human Development Family Science Department is part of our College of Education, and currently we offer an emphasis under the umbrella of the PhD in Education in Human Development and Family Science. But this doesn't align well with goals and training necessary for our students and practitioners. As you know, across the country, there are many challenges with childcare and early childhood education, navigating social justice issues, and helping children deal with challenging circumstances. The creation of this PhD program will produce a workforce trained to make evidence-based decisions that can contribute to addressing these national and regional challenges and workforce shortages. Currently, the state of Nevada does not have a doctoral program in Human Development and Family Sciences. There's also a need for the degree that describes the academic disciplines of our faculty and the scholarship of our graduate students leading to a PhD. There are no changes in the organization or additional resources needed to accommodate the program, and I would be happy to entertain and answer any questions that the committee might have.
Okay, thank you, Provost Thompson. Does anyone on the committee have a question? Anybody not on the committee have a question? Chair Cavallo.
Thank you. Who is this geared towards? Is it for those who have maybe an education background? I know you answer some of this in here, but I'm just trying to kind of personify what a possible person may be who's interested in this program, because I see it as somebody maybe from the education world, but also somebody that's in social work, and I wouldn't be voting for this since I'm not on the committee, but anytime that we can elevate the number of people in mental health in our state, I'm definitely all for it. I'm just having a hard time understanding who would be attracted to this program? I think it's a very wide range of people, but I'd like to hear from you on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Carvalho, for the question. And I'll start with, I should have explained this a little better. In our College of Education, we have a bachelor's degree and a master's degree program in human development and family science. And it's particularly interested, the students who are interested in early childhood development and issues related to early childhood development, and studying programs to support whether it's teachers, educators, social programs in early childhood development. And you are exactly right. Someone with a master's degree in psychology or a master's in social work or in education would be a great candidate to come to get a PhD in this field.
Thank you.
And by adding a PhD program, doesn't that help you when it comes time for your R1 designation and reapplication?
Thank you.
I'm not sure
Jill
reapplication is
DeCarlo.
the right word,
Yeah.
but you know what I mean.
We do submit information on a regular basis. It does support that, having a PhD program that is attractive to students outside of the University of Nevada, Reno, to come to UNR to get their PhDs, and will help with our numbers. But it does also count in terms of a social science degree program, PhDs, and so that will help us also.
Okay. And obviously there's a demand for it or you wouldn't be adding it.
There is a tremendous demand
Thank
for
you.
students in this area.
Okay, any other comments or questions from the committee? Okay, seeing none, I'll move for approval for the UNR.
Second.
Okay, oh, who made the motion?
Okay, so moved.
You make the motion? Okay, Laura, Regent Perkins made the motion. It was seconded by Regent McMichael. Thank you both. All in favor of this proposal, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody, I think I heard unanimous, unanimous. Thank you very much. So that is approved. And we'll move on to, I think 8, right? 8, stay right where you are. UNR program proposal, MS in robotics, and this is also an action item.
Thank you, Chair Del Carlo. For the record, Jeff Thompson, Executive Vice President, Provost, University of Nevada, Reno. And we have for your consideration a new master's program in robotics that would come through our College of Engineering. And it would be based on expertise that we have in programs in computer science, electrical engineering, and mechanical engineering. We have faculty who have active research and scholarship programs in robotics. So this multidisciplinary degree program will prepare students for a wide range of disciplines in research and industrial careers, while advancing the teaching goals of our faculty and allow a more focused recruitment of students into a master's degree, Master of Science in Robotics. So graduate students seeking the degree will be given the opportunity to focus on interdisciplinary coursework in robotics and perform research across disciplines and with multiple advisors. Currently, there are no other graduate degree programs within our system focused on robotics, and it will address the needs of industries in our state, including advanced manufacturing and mining. There are no additional resources needed to bring this on board, and I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Provost Thompson. Do we have questions? Regent Brown, please.
Thank you, Regent Brown, for the record. I'm really excited about this. I think we just all saw the notice from, I don't remember the company, how they're now allowing like home robotics, like a home robot to actually, it's now a thing. We've all seen the movies, it's now a thing. And so this is obviously a wave of the future. And then advanced manufacturing is a big economic development pipeline for our state. So the fact that you guys are addressing this and similar to what I said earlier, not just looking at what we need now, but what we're gonna need in 10 to 15 years, I think it's really a value add. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any other committee members? Non-committee
Yes, I have a
members?
question.
Oh, yes, Regent McMichael.
Yes, since this is a new program, will any of your participants in these programs try out for some of these nationwide competitions outlining their advancements in robotics?
So thank you for the question, Regent McMichael, and absolutely our student clubs and organizations are now competing in these areas, and this will be a focal point for them going forward. It will also help them find other students with similar interests that are in different departments to help them build their teams.
Okay, great. I'm very excited about this program too. I have visited your robotics center that's off campus over by the Innovation Center, which is great. That's for the Washoe County students. And I fully expect this to be a robust program, and you're going to be back here. I don't know if I'll still be on the board, but at some point you're going to be coming back for a PhD, because absolutely this is the future, as Regent Brown pointed out. So very good. Any other? Oh, Regent Cruz Crawford, you have the floor.
Hello, Provost. Question. Is there any work that you're doing with DRI on their robotics, neurobotics? Are there any things that you're doing together? That would be great. I know DRI does a lot of student outreach, and we have robotics, and you're so close to each other.
So first, thank you for the question. And the answer is, off the top of my head, I can't think of what they are, but I know our faculty talk and work with each other. So, but I don't know exactly what the program is that they're working on.
Kabir Acharya, president of DRI. Cruz Crawford, our faculty often collaborate. And so I think robotics is one of the topics, and they're often working at a faculty level. So I think this is fantastic that there's going to be more opportunity for collaboration.
Awesome, thanks. I'm on the review boards for the military academies. And one of the things that really give an opportunity for student leadership is the robotics opportunities, because they get to create, direct, and lead. And so any type of outreach in K-12 is greatly appreciated. So I'm excited to get more people into robotics so we can get more outreach. Thank you.
And just speaking of robotics, this isn't UNR, but I saw in the paper where the robotic bot, or whatever it's called, to deliver the coffee is trying to go off campus. So that's going to be interesting to see if the city allows that. But so, any other comments or questions? With that, I'll entertain a motion from Regent Brown, and a second from Regent Perkins.
Second.
Oh, somebody beat you to it. I'm sorry, Regent McMichael. You got to be in person here. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's unanimous. With that, thank you very much,
Thank you.
Provost Thompson. With that, we'll move on to item number 9, possible action item for TMCC program proposal, a BAS in Applied Business Management. And we turn the floor over to I don't know what your first part of your title is, but it's Jeffrey Alexander.
Correct. Thank you. Yes. Good morning, Chair Del Carlo and Regent members of the ARSA committee. It's a pleasure to be here with you. My name is Jeffrey Alexander, Vice President of Academic Affairs at Truckee Meadows Community College. For the record, I come before you today to present our proposal for a Bachelor of Applied Science degree in Applied Business Management. At recent meetings of this committee, we have heard questions and concerns about the transferability of applied associate degrees, and we believe that this proposal is a big step forward toward remedying some of those concerns. Our proposed BAS degree is designed to provide practical and applied business training for those who have completed applied AAS degrees. These graduates may wish to advance to a higher level supervisory or management position with their current employer, or start or expand their own business. The applied coursework in accounting, business, marketing, management, economics, entrepreneurship, and so on will broaden their knowledge in applied business and management practices. For these students, this proposed BAS degree pathway will provide access to continuing education where, in many cases, a bachelor's degree path did not previously exist or was unattainable via a traditional transfer option. Importantly, the students with any associate degree will be able to pursue this BAS and obtain the business and management skills necessary to advance their career or further or develop their own business. We anticipate strong interest especially from those students who have an AAS degree but who might not have had a path to a bachelor's degree in the past. Previous AAS graduates from TMCC were emailed a short survey to determine interest in this proposed program. And these graduates were chosen for the survey because they do not typically have a clear pathway to a bachelor's degree. Among 134 respondents, 87% said that they would be interested in getting this degree. And as this is a very high level of interest, we anticipate that there will also be interest from other AAS degree holders, as well as those who have earned an AA or AS degree from other institutions, or those who did not have a bachelor's degree option available to them in the past. These graduates may have been able to obtain employment, but AAS degrees in most fields have been viewed in the past as terminal degrees. Their limited transferability has prevented many of them from seeking a baccalaureate degree, and they often forfeit career advancement. Alternatively, those who seek a bachelor's degree often turn to private, for-profit institutions that prey on these individuals. These students can lose thousands of dollars pursuing unaccredited degrees. Finally, many students may need to complete a fully online program due to work schedules or living in remote areas, and this proposed program will offer a fully online option. This program will create a new pathway for Nevada residents to further their business training and earn the skills to apply business concepts to their own company or place of work. If approved, students admitted to this program would be able to transfer the full 60 credits from their associate degree, putting them halfway toward a bachelor's degree when they begin. Finally, we have the expert faculty on staff already to deliver this program with fidelity. TMCC will need to develop 3 upper division courses that we do not currently offer, but all of the other program requirements and electives are already offered at our college. We will be able to offer the program with the existing full and part-time faculty we have in the business department at this time. And as a result, we feel confident that we can welcome a cohort of 24 students, half full-time and half part-time, in each of the first 5 years. And with that, I'll happily take any questions.
So thank you, Vice President of Academic Affairs, Jeffrey Alexander. Do we have any questions on the committee? Regent Brown.
Thank you. Regent Brown for the record. I'm really excited about this. Entrepreneurs are job creators. Not only are we helping them secure their personal future, but they're going to be an economic boost. With that in mind, though, are there any plans for like community involvement, EIRs, entrepreneur in residence, to be engaged with the students, whether that's on their own time, but making connections? Because I think that's where academics can actually layer in with practical implementation in the real world. And so I'm just curious what if there is a plan in place.
That's a great question. Thank you, Regent Brown. And yes, we do have a skill certificate in entrepreneurship, which was just approved very recently at a meeting at the last quarter. And we're very excited about that. So we have the faculty on our staff already who deliver programming in this arena. We're very excited about the opportunity to train students and those who may already be in their own running their own business or perhaps working elsewhere to earn those skills necessary to be entrepreneurs. And so the faculty are very excited about that kind of training and teaching, and they would very much like to be able to extend that excitement to the students in this program. Additionally, one of the letters written in support of this program is from one of our graduates who is an entrepreneur herself. We're very excited to have her and her company behind us because we are very much behind her. And as one of our preferred vendors, Bumblebee Blooms sends us flowers pretty often.
Well, I'm going to volunteer my colleagues at EDON, Doug Irwin and Justin Berg, to be helpful in this. I haven't talked to them about it, but I'm sure they'll be fine with it. They're building out a pipeline for Northern Nevada, and I think they'd be really interested in just being helpful, whether they get EIRs, entrepreneurs in residence, to be just mentors outside of the classroom. And that's what I'm talking about, making this a full holistic approach to building a company and not just learning the academical big business structure. So Doug, Justin, I'm tapping them in. So
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Regent Brown. And I want to say that I think your passion for entrepreneurship is just a beautiful connection to the board, and it's been It's great. And you're the perfect person for workforce, really. I mean, you bring so much, and I'm glad you have your fingers in all over the state, because you should. So with that, Chair Carvalho has a question or comment.
Thank you, Chair Del Carlo. I was really excited to see this as somebody who has been an entrepreneur for over 20 years. For me, this is very exciting as well. And going through the list of courses that that this degree requires, I was so happy to see that financing your small business venture is one of those. We hear all the time, how do I get funding for my business to scale up or to just start? I was also very happy to see business plan development. If you don't have a business plan, that's the very first step. And I know that so many people need help with that. And so that's really exciting. And the fact that to bring this from an associate's degree to something that takes them to the next level is really a creative way of doing this within the community college realm. And I applaud you for doing that. I know sometimes, as Regent Brown has said before, applied bachelor's degrees aren't always translatable in terms of going to that next level in the academic world. I hope, and it feels to me on first glance that this will help to bridge that. And I think that it also sets up our business owners for really understanding what the industry means and how to educate them to do that. So I'm very much in support of this program. Thank you.
Thank you, Regent Carvalho.
Any others? I also very supportive of the program. I see small business as the backbone of our country. And, you know, they get overshadowed because they're small and they don't have Google, you know, General Motors, you know, name all the big ones. But I do believe, and I could be wrong, but I do believe that small businesses employ way more people than all those other big ones put together. So this is really a great program. So thank you for bringing this forward. And with that, I will entertain a motion for approval. And Regent Brown's motion. Second here is Regent Perkins. And all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's unanimous too. Don't even have to ask if there's a no. I love this. This is moving along really great. And I think we can say thank you very much, Vice President of Academic Affairs, Jeffrey Alexander. And with that, we'll go to item number 10 for possible action. It's a handbook revision on residency. And with that, we'll bring up the Director of Policy, Tarina Caserta, who works at our Northern NSHE office. Thank you, Tarina.
Thank you. For the record, Tarina Caserta, Director of Policy, NSHE. Today, you have before you a handbook revision. So I'm here to request approval of this handbook revision to Title IV, Chapter 15, specifically federal exemptions to non-resident tuition. Recently, Congress enacted two separate public laws, both providing in-state tuition to narrowly defined groups of individuals. The first public law was 11842, and that is requiring institutions that receive federal funding to provide an in-state rate to citizens of freely associated states. So those are citizens from the Federated States of Micronesia, the Republic of Marshall Islands, and the Republic of Palau. So students from these states must not be charged out-of-state tuition. And then the second public law is 11781, which amends actually a long-standing federal law, which is 20 USC 1015D, that currently requires institutions to extend an in-state rate to certain members of the United States Armed Forces as well as their dependents and their spouses. And Public Law 11781 amends that code and extends the same provision to certain individuals of foreign service, as well as their dependents and their spouses. So therefore, institutions that are receiving federal funding must not charge out-of-state tuition to these certain individuals. So the handbook that currently complies with this U.S. code, and so what we would be doing is bringing the handbook into alignment with the amendments that have happened. So both of these provisions apply to fees that are charged after July 1, 2024. And that would be, so the intent is to bring the handbook into compliance with federal regulations. And then also you'll see in your briefing paper that since we are looking at this section of the handbook, there's a non-substantive revision to correct an alphabetized list in section 2, since we're in there to get that cleaned up as well.
Okay, does any committee members have a question or comment? Seeing none, I would say, oh, Heather, Regent Brown, you have the floor.
Sorry, Regent Brown for the record. I don't even know if this is the appropriate place to bring this up, but I know previously in new business, I have brought up that I'd like to change residency to encompass the families of the businesses who get go-ed abatements. And so I don't know if, I know we can't add it, but would this be the correct community? Would you be the person I talk to? I don't know, because I appreciate that we're amending it. I just would have loved to amend everything and have a conversation about the whole, making other edits.
For the record, Tarina Caserto, thank you for that question. So you could do that through this committee, looking at the chapter for residency, which is incorporates several sections. So that is something that would be done through this committee, and then that would come back to our office, and we'd take a look at that policy and do a little bit of research and write up a proposal if that's what this committee desires.
I'll be happy. I'll work with the chair so we can get it to you. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yes, Interim Chancellor Charlton.
Thank you, Chair Del Carlo. So Regent Brown, and I don't know if Director Caserto wants to talk about it. There is some language already in the residency section that pertains to individuals that have moved here for business purposes that provides a residency pathway. And so we may want to review some of that language that, because it may already be included, but perhaps it just needs to be strengthened. I don't know if Director Caserto wants to address that.
Sure. Thank you, Tarina Caserto. For the record, under the section in our handbook, there is actually a long list of exemptions that can apply to an individual that is relocating to Nevada for employment purposes. Absolutely. I would have to look at that a little closer to see how that intersects with what you're discussing.
And I am aware of what, Regent Brown for the record, I am aware of what the Chancellor just brought up and what you're addressing. What I was hoping we could do was clarify it, solidify it, make it an economic development like component, and say that we are an advocate for this and working with the state. Like, I wanted to just make it very clear that as a state entity, if the state is offering a company, then we would also extend. I know it's technically in there, but I wanted to make it part of, so we could be part of the dialogue when the Governor's Office of Economic Development talks about the benefits of moving here. Being part of the NSHE system is a benefit, not just something that would happen because you were here. That was my point. It was just to make us part of the dialogue and strengthen that.
I kind of think that sounds like a new business item. For ARSA? I don't think it's been on my list, but I think that would be. So any other comments? I just want to comment that I'm really happy about 118-42 bringing in the Micronesia, Marshall Islands, and Palau. I've gotten to know some people from over there. They are very, very active in the Association of Community College Trustees. They have a very active community college system over there, and they come to our national conferences. Our next one's next month in Seattle, and this is really great. So I'll be happy to be talking to them about that for Nevada. Maybe we can recruit some students here. So, hearing no other comments, I believe that was a move to
Second.
approve. Okay, second, and all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, you're just gonna give me a second. I lost my agenda. I got it back. Okay, that was 10. So from 10, we'll move on to an
Thank you.
information-only item. Number 11, this is on dual credit policy advisory group, Align and Shine Nevada. And with that, I'll turn it over to Vice Chancellor for Academic and Student Affairs at our system office, Daniel Archer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So Daniel Archer, Assistant Vice Chancellor for Academic and Student Affairs. So we have created a group called Align and Shine Nevada, and they are charged with creating a dual credit policy and procedures. This group will have K-12 and higher education representatives on it. And again, they are going to be developing a policy and procedures that promote access, success, and completion. And this work will commence on September 16th. I anticipate this group meeting on a monthly basis. And that concludes my presentation.
Do any members of the committee have questions? Regent Brown.
Regent Brown for the record. I'm really happy that we have a committee put together. I know I had conversations with you, and this is referencing a conversation I had with President Sandoval. I personally would like to have a better understanding of how dual enrollment is operated at each institution. What does the onboarding look like for a student, but also a school? What is the continuing check-ins look like? What is success? How is success measured? I'm sure this is all stuff that the committee is evaluating. I'm happy to send you my notes offline, but I just think that we're going to be asked to make decisions at some point, and without data and fundamentals and just an understanding of the structure, it's really hard to say if, how we're going to move forward. So I'm sure that you guys are going to go through all that, but I would also like along the way to be shared information so we can just have a better understanding, because I know each institution operates differently. And as you guys come to streamline and pick best practices, I just like to understand the baseline of where we started. So thank you.
Any other questions from the committee? I have a question, and will you be that representative or the only one, or will there be several of you?
I will be co-chairing it
Okay, great. I think that was in the briefing paper, if I recall.
along
Okay.
with Felicia Gonzalez from NDE. So it'll be a
Okay.
tag team effort.
And you're going to be meeting weekly, did you say?
Monthly. Yeah.
Monthly, okay. And Vice Chancellor Charlton has a comment or question.
Yeah, for the record, Patty Charlton, Chancellor, Nevada System of Higher Ed. I also wanted to advise that the presidents have each nominated individuals, and we'll have representatives from their institutions participating, as well as Joan Ebert, State Superintendent for Nevada Department of Education, is working with the State Superintendents Association, and we will have representatives from each of the districts, primarily, especially the large ones in particular, but also some of our rural communities as well participating. So it is really also picking up on some of the work that was done a few years ago and taking it to the next level. And so we're really excited about this. We know that across our state, we want every child to have an opportunity that can and wants to participate. I should say probably high school, but to have an opportunity. And so we know that capacity and success is very, very important.
Thank you, Chancellor, and Regent Cruz Crawford.
Thank you so much, Chair. Question, are you utilizing the school districts too, like Gia Moore?
Yes,
for that
Gia's on the
process?
committee, and there's
Okay.
several K-12 folks.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Perfect. I know there was some frustration at the last meeting about the increase of tuition fees and all that. So I think it's great that we're bringing everyone together. I saw the agenda item, took a picture of the task force and sent it to Felicia, and with a celebration emoji. I'm just really excited to get everybody on board and make these decisions together. So it's going to be a great task force. And the work that came out of the last one was unfinished. So excited to see that continue. Thank you so much for heading this on. I don't know if you had a choice, but thank you so much.
I'm all on boards.
And thank you. I think this is going to be good too, because I don't think the work got finished that was started before, and that was before you came. And I do believe, a shout out to President Sandoval, because I think when he was governor, the bill got passed to even do this. And so that's been maybe 8 years ago, about session 2015. And we know there's so much potential in the state of Nevada. We've talked about that somewhat at our workshop in July, that we had an information-only item on this. And I'm glad to see a cross-section of people come together, especially K through 12, with us on this, because this is every student in Nevada, and we have, I don't know, how many 100,000 students do we have, K through 12 in Nevada, that are in high school? I mean, I know there's over 300 just in Clark, but every student should have this opportunity. So this committee can take the work that was started, the successes that we have, and under your leadership and, your focus with your background, Complete College America, that we can do wonderful things with this program for every student in Nevada. So let's all see this as a real positive, and we look forward to frequent updates for your committee. Okay? Anybody else got anything? Great. We're doing really good, you guys. You guys are smart. That's why you're on the Academic Affairs Committee. So with that, we go to new business. And I think Regent Brown has new business. What is it, Regent Brown?
Well, Regent Brown, for the record, my official new business will be just a callback to the last time I brought this up, but new business will be listing family members of companies who get go-ed abatements are automatically eligible for in-state tuition.
And they get, what was the word? They get what?
For the Governor's Office of Economic Development, go-eds abatements. Yeah.
Abatements.
And it's a rigorous process. The Governor's Office has a committee. The RDAs deal with it, so it's not just a,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, we'll
And
learn all about that when it gets on the agenda. Okay, great. Anybody else have new business? Regent Perkins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to have an update on the dual credit policy advisory group, like maybe in December, so it comes back to us so that we can hear and stay, informed about what's going on.
Okay, thank you. We'll bring that definitely, because we're going to stay on top of this. This is a big one for us. Anybody else? Awesome. Okay. From new business, we'll go to number 13. Is there any public comment in Elko?
There is none at this time.
Is there any in the system office in Reno? I don't hear anybody even there. Is there any public comment in Las Vegas system office?
There's none at this time.
Thank you. Is there anyone on the line SCS?
There are no callers at this time, Madam
And
Chair.
is there anybody here in Carson City in this beautiful room? Yes, we have one person, one taker. Go ahead, Mr. Irvin.
Kent Irvin, ERVIN, Nevada Faculty Alliance, and I apologize for not being at public comment earlier, but I was in the other meeting. On the dual credit study group, that's great, we need that. I have three things. One, the briefing document that I read really only talked about concurrent enrollment. I think we need to discuss dual and concurrent enrollment holistically, so I hope that's the purview of the whole committee. Second, I'm glad to hear that there are representatives from the various institutions. However, I want to really request that there be faculty represented who are directly involved in supporting these programs, sometimes with very limited resources. And to do these things right requires a lot of support from the faculty on the campuses. And so having people who are actually involved with that and not just the administrators who like the numbers would be good. And third, to the question of assessment, I'm sure, of course, all of these courses, as all of our courses, are assessed in the normal ways, but particularly for courses that are offered in different modalities, and that is dual enrollment, concurrent enrollment, online, on campus, a good way to evaluate how they are doing in those various modalities is to take the cohort of students, say all the students who got A's or B's in one modality, and when they matriculate into the university or college, how do they do in the next courses? What are the grades? What are the outcomes? And that really would let you do comparisons of how we're doing in offering these kinds of courses. And that kind of analysis just has not been done enough. Thank you.
Oops. Thank you. Any other public comment today? We gained some time, everybody. So with that, I will adjourn our meeting and we're going to go to lunch, I believe. Lunch is now served.